and did all my flight training down in the Southeast Training Command. Maxwell Field, Alabama was the headquarters, and I went to primary in Albany, Georgia, a basic training in Bainbridge, and then back to Albany for advanced. And then when I completed flight training, we had a little ceremony to get our wings. And believe it or not, if you know who Eddie Rickenbacker is, he was the World War I ace. He was the speaker at our wing ceremony. I got my wings from Eddie Rickenbacker. he shot down 25 German aircraft during World War I. He was the leading ace. And at that time he was the president of Eastern Airlines. And he was a great guy. Then I went to Salt Lake City, Utah, where they put our crew together, and we went from there to Colorado Springs, Peterson Field, which was the best base I was ever on. It was beautiful. We trained in our B-24 there. They had 12,000-foot runways, which was really nice for the B-24s because they kind of like to hug the ground on takeoff. But we had a great time there. We were there about 2.5 months. They took us by train over to Topeka, Kansas. We picked up a brand new B-24G, a North American B-24 there, which was a beautiful airplane. And we flew that the southern route down to Trinidad, down to Belém, Brazil, across the South Atlantic, over to Dakar in Africa, and then over to Algiers, Marrakesh in Morocco, and then Algiers. I spent 2 weeks in Algiers because our plane got damaged. We had to wait for them to bring us another one. And then we flew from a little town in northern Libya called the Jeddah. And I guess it was in northern Algiers, called the Jeddah. We flew that over to Italy. And our base in Italy was on what they call the Foggia Plain, which is a big flat plateau. And there was quite a few air bases there. Our group was the 451st group. And we had 4 squadrons. Whenever we go on a mission, we put up 6 planes out of each squadron. So for our group, we had 24 planes going on a mission. And we were in a real good area because the range of B-24 was, geez, we could go 1,500, almost 2,000 miles with a B-24. We carried 2,800 gallons of high-octane fuel. We carried 6,000 pounds of bombs. We had 9 oxygen tanks in the plane. It was a great airplane. It was a good airplane. Once you got it up there, it was pretty good. It could take a lot of damage and still keep flying. Well, when we first got over there, we lived in tents, dirt floors. We didn't have anything like they had in the 8th Air Force in England. Those guys had they had Quonset huts, and they had bars, and they could go into London. We didn't have anything like that. We could go into Foggia, but there wasn't much there. But in any event, we flew 2 practice combat missions, and then we started on combat missions. And before I get to that, I have to tell you a little story. 2 years ago, I gave a talk at the Collins Foundation up in Stowe, Massachusetts. They had a little veterans round table up there. And during my talk, I was talking about the oil refineries in Ploesti, Romania, which was one of the main targets for the 15th Air Force in 1944. Well, lo and behold, sitting next to me was a guy who was a German soldier on the ground at Ploesti when we would come over. And he told quite a story. He was laughing halfway through it. But that was very interesting to me, sit next to a guy that was on the ground. But in any event, we flew missions up into northern Italy. We flew up into Germany. We flew through the Balkan countries, Romania, Yugoslavia, Hungary, Czechoslovakia. Some of our toughest missions were Vienna, the Markersdorf Airfield in Vienna, Wiener-Neustadt up in Germany, which was the leading manufacturing location for the Messerschmitt Daimler Me-109 fighter aircraft for the German Luftwaffe. We went up there a couple times, and that was a real tough target. The only time we ever saw a red flak, I don't know why it was red, but they sent it up, and we thought it looked like the 4th of July. But it was a tough target. We lost a lot of planes over at Wiener-Neustadt. We went up there a couple of times. Then another time, which was quite interesting, maybe you heard of the town called Friedrichshafen, which is on Lake Constance, which is on the border between Switzerland and Germany. And we would fly out over the Adriatic, go up the Adriatic, up the Po Valley, over the Alps, and then make a left-hand turn to get over to Lake Constance, where Friedrichshafen. Friedrichshafen was where the dirigibles were originally built. There was a guy there by the name of Zeppelin. I forget his first name, Frederick Zeppelin, I believe it was, and he started building Zeppelins for Germany. And the von Hindenburg, which crashed and burned in New Jersey in 1937, that was sort of the end of the Zeppelins or the dirigibles. But Friedrichshafen was where they started. So we were approaching Friedrichshafen. We were at about 20,000 feet, and I could look up ahead, and boy, there was a big cloud of black flak right at our altitude. And I thought, boy, this is really gonna be a tough one. Well, whoever was up in the lead, and there was many groups, whoever was leading that day, we got up near the flak, and he made a left-hand turn out over the lake. We all dropped our bombs in the lake. But we didn't lose an aircraft. We didn't lose a plane that day. That was very good. Another mission that we went on, when they were doing the invasion of southern France, they sent us up to bomb the coastal installations, which we did. And they told us on the way up, whatever you do, don't fly over any ships that you see on the Mediterranean, because they'll shoot at you. Well, we went on that mission, and geez, in the Mediterranean, heading towards the southern France, we must have saw at least 200 ships heading in that direction. Some from the east and some from the west. I don't know where they were all coming from. We went up, we bombed the coastal installations, and the flak in southern France was very tough. Usually when you go on a bomb run, you go from the initial point down to where you drop the bombs and then rallied off out of the flak. But in southern France, the flak stayed right with you. When you rallied, the flak rallied with you. So that was a tough area for the flak. And flak was, you probably know, explosive shells that would explode to send shrapnel flying through the air for maybe 100 feet. And I had one time we came back, I had a big hole underneath my seat where a flag had come in. I had another one where a piece came up through the plane, went right up through the top. Many instances. We had another one where I had a call from the waist gunners that the whole interior of the bomb bay was all covered with a fluid. I thought, oh my God, if that's gasoline, we've had it. Well, it turned out it wasn't gasoline, it was hydraulic fluid. And along the side, down low, above the bomb bays, above the bomb bay, was 4 half-inch aluminum hydraulic lines. And a piece of flak had come up, cut every one of those lines, and it was under pressure. It was under a lot of pressure. And man, that sprayed the whole bomb bay. Well, our engineer, we had a great flight engineer, he went down and he crimped every one of those lines. So when we got back to our base and landed, we had enough hydraulic pressure for a couple of brake applications, which worked pretty good. So it was a great experience. One of my favorite subjects in school was geography, and to see all these, the blue Danube, you know, when we were over there, it wasn't blue, it was always brown. And see, the Alp mountains of the Alps were just gorgeous. They were just beautiful. Switzerland, we could look over and see Switzerland. Geez, that looks beautiful. And let's see, I made, in the end of 1942, the beginning of 1943, the Germans were being pushed out of North Africa by General George Patton and General Montgomery. Montgomery was coming west, Patton and our army was going east, and they caught the Germans in the pincer movement, drove them out of North Africa. Well, Winston Churchill and our president, FDR, met in Casablanca in Morocco to determine what's the next steps that we should take in the war. And they decided the #1 target was Sicily, to conquer Sicily, which they did. And the #2 was to wipe out the 11 oil refineries in Ploesti, Romania, because they were providing 1/3 of the fuel used by the Germans. So if we wiped that out, they said it would shorten the war by at least 6 months. So in the summer of 1944, a long time ago, 73 years ago, it was the 15th Air Force's primary mission to wipe out those refineries. Now, Romania was a beautiful country. There's a lot of flat farmland, but around the city of Ploesti, there were 11 refineries, and they produced over 10 million tons of oil a year. They were really producing a lot of oil. Well, it turned out that it was a very tough target for us because it was highly defended. They had over 240 anti-aircraft guns on the ground that would shoot at us when we'd come over. And usually they would have a smoke cover over the area so that we couldn't look down, see the refineries, we'd just see the smoke. We'd drop into the smoke. Well, I saw a lot of parachutes when we go on a mission to Ploesti. We lost a lot of aircraft there. You know, at that time, there was over 2.5 million men in the Army Air Force. It was not only in Europe, it was in the Far East, in Japan, and the islands. You know, it was really a big outfit. And somebody told me that the Army Air Corps lost more men during World War II than any other particular group. I don't know how true that is, but I know we lost a lot of guys, because you figured if you had like, I remember one time they said there was 1,000 plane raid on Berlin. Well, every plane that you lost 10 men. If you lost 10 planes, you lost 100. There was a lot of losses. But in any event, I made 5 missions to Ploesti, and each time I saw parachutes, came back sometimes with one engine out, came back with a lot of damage, but made it back. On my last mission to Ploesti, I was in the cockpit alone coming in on the bomb run from the initial point. The other pilot said, I want to go in the back and get some pictures this time. Okay, we thought that was okay. Well, over the target we dropped the bombs, and I looked over to the right, and the flak was way over there, and I thought, gee, that's great, they think we're over there. But what happened? A piece of flak came up through the wing and left a hole about maybe 2 by 6, but it cut the aileron cable right in half. So I could take the wheel and turn it. We had no ailerons. And if you know anything about flying, without ailerons you can't turn the airplane. You push on the rudder and it will skid, but it'll keep going in the same direction. You can't turn. So we thought, holy geez, how are we going to get back? But we found if you wanted to turn left, pull back on the left 2 engines, push up on the right 2 engines, and gradually, very gradually, it would take maybe 15-20 minutes to get it turned, but it would finally turn. We finally got it turned heading back to our base in Italy. When we got back to our base in Italy, the tower said, ask the crew if they want to bail out before you attempt to come in. We asked them and they all said, no, we'll stay with you. Well, we did about a 45 to 50 mile straight in approach. Fortunately, there was no crosswind, because if we got pushed off the runway, we couldn't correct or we couldn't go around. So we had to make sure this landing worked. and it did. We landed okay, had plenty of braking that time in our hydraulic system, so we were okay. But those are some of the things that I can remember. It all seems like a big dream now, but my memory is still pretty good. I'm 93. I can't believe it. I'm very blessed that I made it this far. And I appreciate your interest in listening to somebody who talk about World War II flying. Yeah. Well, that's about all I can. Are there any questions? If you have any questions, I'll try to. Go ahead.
Yes, when you drop the bombs in the lake, did you get mission credit on that?
Wait, you have to speak on that.
When you drop the bombs in the lake, did you get a mission credit for that?
I think we probably did. Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we didn't.
How many missions did you have to have before you got rotated? 35, 50?
Well, I flew actual missions. I flew 30. But see, they had a system that for certain missions they gave you a double count. If I counted double, I'd probably have 48. You know, because every time I went to Ploesti, that was a double mission. Wiener-Neustadt was a double mission. Southern France was a double mission. There was, you know, I mean, you got double credit. You got double credit, you know. That's how they did that. Yeah. No. See, the way we worked over there was a little different than they did in the beginning. Our bombardiers watched the lead aircraft with the lead bombardier. when he dropped, everybody dropped. So our bombardier, all he had to do was watch that lead aircraft. And when he saw the bombs drop, he'd drop ours. And the navigator, we didn't have to do any navigating. We knew the lay of the land so well. And, you know, Yugoslavia always had red soil. So we knew we were over Yugoslavia. You know, we got to know the lay of the land so well that, and when we come back, we'd always fly over the Adriatic, and where our base was, there was a little point that stuck out into the Adriatic, and we just flew above that point and right straight in, it'd take us right to our field. So it was very easy to navigate. And when we'd go up into Germany, we just fly up the Adriatic, go up the Po Valley, over the Alps, and we'd be in Germany. And it was very easy. All we had to do was find the Adriatic on our way back. And we'd land, no problem. Yeah.
Did you lose anybody in your plane? Was anyone killed in your plane? Was anyone killed in your plane?
No, we were very fortunate. We, on one of our missions, the only one of our crew that was injured was our nose gunner. And on one of our missions, something came through his turret. He had nose turret. Something came through that, a bomb or a piece, it wasn't a piece of flak. Sitting in front of him on a 45-degree angle was about a 3 or 3.5 inch plate of plexiglass that he looked through. And something came in and hit that plexiglass and went straight up, and it was a flash of fire. I saw it, I thought, oh my God, that must have really, I thought it killed them. I thought it killed the nose gunner. You know, well, turns out the only thing that happened to him, because he was behind that plate of glass, he got a cut underneath his eye. And of course he couldn't stay in the turret because the turret had split. The air was flowing in, and so he came up on the flight deck and spent the rest of the mission up on the flight deck. But he only had that. And we told him, we said, well, you can get a Purple Heart for that. he laughed, he said, nah. But that was it. We were very, very fortunate. That was the only injury that we had on our crew. I flew with another crew. They assigned me a couple of times when new crews would come in, I'd fly co-pilot with the new crews on their first mission. And we went on one up to southern France. We dropped the bombs, we rallied, and we were on the way back, and everything's okay, and all of a sudden the engineer was transferring fuel from the auxiliaries into the mains. And the engine started going up, and then they come down, and then they go up. What the heck is that? I didn't know what it was. But I thought, the only thing I could think of was the transfer of fuel. We were getting some air out of the auxiliary tanks. That was affecting the engine. So I told the engineer, quit transferring fuel, which he did. I had already called the colonel who was leading us that. I told him, I said, we might have to go into Corsica because we got engine trouble. But as soon as the engineer stopped transferring fuel, everything was okay. So we made it back okay. When we got on our field, there was a Consolidated Tech representative on our field. They built the B-24s, many of them. So I asked him, I said, hey, what would have caused that? And he said, well, I'll tell you. There's a lot of things happen to these airplanes, we don't know what it is. He didn't know the answer to it. But I still think it was maybe a little air out of the...
Gotta finish up, Tim. Gotta finish up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Any more questions?
speeder?
No. He was a great guy. He was a great guy. He flew missions. He flew missions with the 8th out of England. Yeah, I have to tell you, my older brother was a fighter pilot with the 9th Air Force in England. He flew 86 missions, got the DFC. And he stayed, for the rest of his life, he flew executive jet and retired from ITT. He flew for them for quite a few years. Flew Grumman Gulfstreams. He loved those. Thank you. Thank you very much.